Hello, this is Michael Halper from Sales Scripter, and this is Module 1 in the Smart Sales System training program. In this video and module, we will introduce you to the concept of smart selling and provide an overview of the sales training program. Let's start with outlining what SMART stands for, because it's actually an acronym, and SMART stands for Sales Messaging and Response Tactics. What do we mean when we say sales messaging? Sales messaging is the collection of key talking points and questions you should be communicating for the product or service that you sell. Now, whether they realize it or not, every salesperson is already using a sales message. And in my opinion, what most salespeople use is they use what I would refer to as a product-focused sales message. And this is how that goes. Hey, yeah, this is who I am. This is the company I'm with. This is what we sell. Do you need what I sell? Are you interested in what I sell? Can I schedule a meeting with you to discuss what I sell? Almost all of the cold emails and cold calls I get follow that outline. And you might look at that and think, oh, come on now. Most salespeople don't communicate that poorly and in that way. And I'll actually show you an example of an email. I'm only going to show you one, but I get 50 to 100 cold emails a day, and almost all of them align with this structure. This is who I am, and this is the company I'm with. This is what we sell. Are you interested in what I sell? Can I schedule a meeting with you? In addition, I put a lot of the cold calls I get on our YouTube channel. Right now, there are 51 videos on this playlist, and almost all of those cold calls are salespeople using the product selling approach. Hey, this is who I'm with. I'm calling to see if you need what we sell. But you could actually push back on me and you could say, well, what's wrong with that approach? If I'm a salesperson, what's wrong with contacting as many companies as I can and talking about my product as much as I can? Well, while that is a logical approach, there are many reasons why that is not an optimum way to go, and why that type of sales message will actually make selling more difficult than it needs to be. First of all, a product-focused approach is all about me, my product, my company, and the salesperson trying to close the deal, which aligns with the salesperson's interests. The salesperson's interests are talking about their company, their product, and making money and hitting their sales targets. So when a salesperson uses a product-focused approach, they are focusing more on the stuff they care about. The other problem with this is that your prospects are getting sold to a lot. They're getting a lot of cold emails. They're getting a lot of cold calls. And when you reach out and you use a product-focused approach, you're just flagging yourself as the next salesperson who's reaching out to try to sell something. And because there's so many other salespeople along with you who are looking like salespeople who are selling something, that's going to trigger the prospect's guardedness, and that's going to lead to immediate objections and rejection. Objections like, I'm not interested, we don't need that today, we're doing just fine. The other big problem with a product-focused approach, where you're reaching out, trying to talk about the product, see if the prospect wants or needs the product that you're trying to sell. Another big problem with that is that at the exact time that prospects answer your call or are reading your cold email, it's most likely the case that the prospect is not in buying mode for your product at that exact time. It's not to say they don't need it. It's not to say that you cannot persuade them to buy your product. It's just that at that exact moment, most likely they're not thinking about that. And that means that when you use a product-focused approach, you are likely to create a mismatch between what you want to talk to them about and with what they're thinking about at that exact moment. That also increases the odds of objections like, I'm not interested, we're not making any changes right now. And you're likely to miss a lot of opportunities. Just because they don't need what you sell today or aren't looking to buy what you sell today, you could still get engaged. So at the end of the day, this approach, in my opinion, leads to fewer leads being generated and fewer deals being closed. And at the end of the day, this approach is more likely to feel difficult. So our approach to improving how salespeople communicate and improve their sales results is by taking the product-focused sales message and completely turning it upside down. And we do that by taking salespeople from using a product-focused sales message and get them to use more of a prospect-focused sales message. So instead of focusing on this is the product I sell, we are going to focus more on the prospect we are trying to sell to. And that might look something like this. When we're reaching out, we focus on this is how I typically help. These are the problems I usually help to fix. How are you doing in those areas? Are you having any of those problems? We might be able to help you. Are you available for a brief conversation? Now, this approach is completely different from what the product selling salesperson does. And of course, we could still talk about the product, but we can introduce it later as a solution to the prospect's needs. And let me show you how this can change all of these other challenges that you might experience with a product focused approach. Instead of being all about me, we are going to be all about the prospect, all about the person we're trying to sell to. And instead of being all about our interest, our product, closing deals, making money for ourselves, we are going to focus on the prospect's interests, talking about what we are going to improve for them. And because we're modifying our approach and focusing more on them, we are going to improve our ability to create rapport with the prospects that we're trying to sell to. And this is going to help us to decrease how much we look like a salesperson who's trying to sell something. We're going to look more like a business person, an advisor, or a consultant. And making these changes is going to immediately decrease the amount of objections and rejection we face day in and day out. Of course, there are still going to be objections, but prospects are going to be slower to putting up that wall and trying to shut us down. We're going to focus more on simply selling the conversation and opening the dialogue between us and the prospect. And all of these modifications are going to improve our ability to establish more conversations with prospects. And that's going to lead to us generating more leads, closing more deals. And at the end of the day, with this type of approach, selling will actually feel easier. Not only will it feel easier because you're going to be generating more results and selling more, but it's going to feel easier because you're going to face less objections and rejection and less friction with the people you're trying to sell to. Now, you might look at this approach and say, okay, well, that seems like a decent way to go, but it can be a little bit more difficult to have the right talking points in these areas instead of just talking about the product. And we actually solve that by having a step-by-step process to take you through to create your sales message. This process will help you to create the optimum things to say and ask for the product or service you sell. And as we progress to the next 3 modules in the Smart Sales System, we will take you through that step-by-step sales message brainstorming process to help you to create a sales message for the product or service that you sell. Now, that is just the sales messaging piece of the Smart Sales System. The other piece is response tactics. So one half of our approach is to optimize and improve what you say when you are reaching out and communicating with prospects. And then another big piece to having you perform at the highest level is having you prepared for how to respond to what the prospect says. So a lot of what the prospect is going to say is that they're going to give you objections. And the Smart Sales System will actually not only help you to create responses to many of the objections that you are guaranteed to face again and again, but we will also teach you a methodology for how to get around objections and what to do when you face those. And it's not just getting you prepared for objections, it's also teaching you a methodology for how to respond to what the prospect says when you ask them questions and a prospect gives you an answer. What do you do then? The Smart Sales System provides tremendous clarity for what to say and do in many of the situations. And a lot of that includes dealing with how to respond and what to do depending on what the prospect says to you. So that is pretty much it for the introduction to smart selling. In the next module, we will start our sales message brainstorming process and help you to create a value proposition for the product or service that you sell. And if you want to support us, a very easy way to do it is simply like, comment, share these videos, subscribe to our channel. Any of those help us, and none of those cost you anything. And that is pretty much it. Hopefully this was interesting and helpful. If you have any questions, the best place to go is salesscripter.com. Thanks for being here, and we look forward to seeing you on the next video or training session. Have a great day. Take care. Bye.